Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Open Mic with the MVP Marco. I am, of course, your host, the MVP Marco. Who else would it be? Sheena hasn't gotten rid of me yet, so I'm still here, still doing the show for the time being. No, I'm joking. I think I should be cool, but we're well deep into this series. I have a lot of interviews. Actually, on YouTube right now, if you go to the MVP Marco, I actually started uploading a lot of the video versions of the interviews that I check out those videos if you haven't yet. So MVP Marco on YouTube, definitely check those out. Um, Other than that, no sponsors on the show, obviously, but the only sponsor I really do appreciate is the Pod Foundation. It's like some max collection of podcast content creators, all that type of stuff. It's the Chick Foley Show. It is the Extra Cooler Show. It is a Turnbuckle Tavern. Coming down the aisle with J Bone. All those shows together create the Pod Foundation, and it's just literally we run the gamut of all the everything professional wrestling, pretty much, and a little bit more. Obviously, I'm not really professional wrestling oriented with this show, but there is content out there. One of the other shows that I definitely want you to check out is Broken VCR. That's on the Turnbuckle Tavern feed. They cover a lot of the like obscure films and things like that. So they'll review like an old film, and then they'll go on and talk as like kind of like a panel. I really enjoy that show. If you're not looking for the obviously professional wrestling content that we provide, so you have my show, you have that show, and there's a host of other shows. Definitely check those out. But now let's get to my next guest. So this person I've been trying to get on the show for a while, pretty much since late August. Just scrolling through TikTok, came upon a video of this woman giving some the top, I think it was like the top three short films incorporated with Nightmare on Elm Street. So became very intrigued. Obviously, went down a rabbit hole of short films and interviews and the documentary. We'll get into that definitely. I mean, I'm kind of like fanboying out a little bit because I've been following for the past few months, and like I said, it's kind of like an overload of information. I'm actually getting to talk to this person and actually pick their brains on not literally pick their brains, because obviously this is horror oriented, but nonetheless, let's bring her on. Deandra, how are you?
Well, that was such a wonderful intro. I'm awesome. How you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. Yeah. Like I said, it's been a long time. I think you're one of the most sought after interviews for me anyway, just because of the obviously the nostalgia fact with Nightmare on Elm Street, and then finding out there was an actual like community of fans, and I think that's what intrigued me the most was Fred heads. Like I've heard of I remember back like way in the like early 2000s, you had the bronies, the guys that were like, fans of My Little Pony. They had a whole documentary on it and stuff like that. And it was very interesting because I didn't know there was that type of collective fandom for that out there. But now with this, I had no clue, because you see like Friday the 13th, Halloween, all these other horror franchises. They're pretty prevalent nowadays, but you don't really hear too much about Nightmare on Elm Street, and that's kind of like that makes me sad, because that was like obviously a lot of us was our first foray into horror in the 80s and stuff like that. And like before we get into it, like what are your thoughts on that? Like why do you think that like the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise isn't as prevalent as like say like Halloween and Friday the 13th and all those other ones out there?
I had a small conversation with a friend who's really big into nostalgia, and he likes a lot of different horror franchises. And he was telling me how much he loved Nightmare, but that it's falling away because there's just not been any new installments. There hasn't been a new game. There hasn't been a new movie since 2010. We get new merch, but in very small increments. And it's usually Jackie Earl Haley, because Robert owns his own likeness rights and New Line / Warner Brothers doesn't. So it's very hard to license his likeness for certain things. And so, and people don't want to buy that as much. They want Robert. Even though I actually have come around to Jackie over the years, people still want Robert. But I think
Yeah.
it's just the fact that because we haven't had Nightmare, because Friday's had the games, they've had
Hmm.
the talks of the new prequel, and then of course there's Halloween. I mean, it's just been doing all kinds of things. Yeah,
Yeah.
Freddy's been a Dead by Daylight, but nothing of the sort. There's been a couple small podcasts like around Freddy's Nightmares, but I know there's like the Friday the 13th network, or people
Hmm.
who do focus on Scream, like Scream with Ryan C. Showers. Um, I had a podcast a while ago called Elm Street Radio that was about the Nightmare franchise. I can't remember why. Oh, it was because we did Fred Heads. And so we were just like, we're
Okay.
too busy. We can't keep up with this podcast. So we've been thinking about bringing it back because everybody else is still going. But like that little bit of Nightmare, just that little community that almost that we just like talk to each other. We don't talk as much about it to other people, which is
Yeah.
why I try so hard to keep it alive, because I know that people are forgetting about it. People aren't talking about it, this, that, and the
Yeah.
other thing. So
Yeah. As I was going along, like, watching, all the different, like the Fred Heads documentary, and then, like, watching the short films and all the fan made films and stuff like that. Obviously, the one you were, starting, like, the story is like, it's such I don't want to use the words amazing, but it is an amazing story. Like, just like the
you
background
should.
characters. I mean, like, it's just kind of weird saying amazing to like a horror franchise, but like just the story itself, like, just watching like the short films in the series Krueger, and seeing, like, seeing the background of Freddy Krueger, and how all that like came about, like that stuff, that's fascinating to me. And like, you would think like they would like put something out like on the big screen, not a big screen, but like maybe on like a TV series like Netflix or something like that. Like, has there been any talks of like any, pushes for that? Like, and obviously you're heavy in the community, but like, was that, is that like a thought, like just going straight to like a streaming service, like a Shutter, even maybe like maybe they could pick something up like that? Like, has that ever been like discussed at all?
There's been a lot of people over the years. Mike Flanagan said he wanted to do it. Elijah Wood did a pitch.
Mm.
Blumhouse, of course, has tried to go after it. And people still want to. There have been some problems because people don't know who to send the script to.
Uh,
But the Craven estate owns the domestic rights to A Nightmare on Elm Street. So they are technically in charge of receiving the scripts. The only problem that I've heard through the grapevine is that the people running the Craven estate, which would be Wes Craven's family, wants a lot of money. Whomever is the
mm,
pinpoint person, I believe I know who it is, but I don't want to point any fingers, is just asking for like a ridiculous amount of money. And everybody's like, why are you asking for that much for these rights? That's going to be really hard to get a studio to put that much forward and then invest in making the movie.
yeah.
So that is the thing that's honestly holding it back, is that the price of the Elm Street rights are just ridiculously high, and studios are just trying to figure out what they could do budget wise and how much they're willing to drop for it. That is the only reason that it's holding on.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that there could be some kind of leeway, like, all right, I'll accept this, and then we'll get a new Nightmare, because everybody
Mm,
wants it. People want to play Freddy. People are always talking about how they want to play Freddy or do a Nightmare movie. But that is the only thing, is that the Craven estate holds the rights, and they're
mm.
just asking for so much money that there hasn't been any way to go forward.
Yeah, that's kind of like with a lot of like, licensing, a lot of like, well, like we talked a little bit before the show, like I was telling you about the Queen G, and the Ninja Turtle stuff, and the
So
obviously the creators are, they're still around, but they license out like the likenesses to like different, entities and different companies, and they can do like pretty much whatever they want with each one. So I mean, I wonder why they wouldn't do something like that. Just license out the franchise, and just
yeah,
everyone give their own, like, kind of like make it like a multiverse, if you want to say, like kind of like how Marvel or DC does, where you have like different versions of Freddy. It doesn't have to be the same, exact one. Like, someone might have a different idea. Not the remake that they did. That's not. We're not gonna go that down that route. But like, just like maybe something like something different, a new twist on it, like a modern version of it, like kind of like how they
yeah,
did with Scream. They brought Scream back, but it kept that same, it kept Wes Craven's kind of his formula to it. It didn't change it too much, but it was new enough where younger people can catch on to it and things like that. So you got to wonder why they wouldn't consider licensing that out, because it's definitely worth money. Like you said, it's
Yeah.
if it costs a lot to do this, or actually to get it done, that means that there's money in it somehow. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
it's
feel like
just
if the person in charge cared more about having the story told and had cared more about like getting it into the hands of fans rather than how much money they can get from it, we would absolutely have something in a heartbeat. But
yeah,
I think they care more about how much money they're going to get out of it
yeah.
than
That is
that,
true.
unfortunately.
That is
But it'd
very
be
true.
so good. I
Oh
have
yeah,
so
of
many
course.
ideas.
Like, do you think because he's not Freddy's not like a straight up like slasher figure. He's more like a cerebral type of like a character. Like, do you think that's one of the reasons why it's not like not that it's going to be hard? It would be hard to do or hard to write for it, but like it's not straight up like Halloween. It's Michael Myers. He just goes around killing everyone. Obviously, there's some story to it, but like Freddy plays with dreams, and there's a lot more, like I said, cerebral type of play with it. Like you gotta think of that aspect of it. You're not only
Mhm.
writing a story, like a slasher story or horror story. Now you got to do the dream sequences, and you got to be
Yeah.
as creative in that area as you would in a regular story, and you got to make it so like the viewers not like knowing if they're watching, the person dream or the person, awake. Like, you think that's like, do you think that's like something that's been maybe kind of lost in that aspect of it?
I don't know, because what I've heard, I think the one of the biggest I think the money is definite that it's the definite like reason. Cerebral could be a part of it because there are so many avenues that you could take Nightmare. Obviously, you don't want to remake a movie. There have been talks that there are scripts going around where, for example, they're taking on a version of Nightmare 2 or Nightmare
Okay.
3. So they're not looking to redo it, but then they kind of want to add in some sort of twist with it. I honestly think in today's day and age, with how smart horror has gotten to the point
Yeah.
where, like, some of the A24 movies I've watched, I've been like, I get that this is symbolic, but it's just like way out there for me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I just I'm sitting there like I kind of want this movie to be over. So I don't think they do that with Nightmare,
Yeah.
but I feel like it would be perfect because you could have that mixture of fun and terror with the smart like storytelling, because there is so much there with the dreams and the ideas of the underbelly of suburbia and the
Yeah.
sins of the parents. I really honestly want a Nightmare on Elm Street prequel so bad,
Yeah.
that is like a mixture of, Mindhunter and True
Mm.
Detective, like True Detective season 3, where it's like, kids are just it focuses on the police force. You don't see much of Freddy. Like maybe you'll get some of him, but it really is like that set in the 70s like
Mm.
time period piece that is, solving these crimes, but it also has a lot of the horror. So you have the true crime, which appeals to broader audiences, and then you have the horror, which appeals to the horror people. You put that together, you can make a really good story that I think people will just get sucked into immediately. And I
Mm.
would love to call it Springwood. I saw that
That's
they were planning on doing the Friday the 13th prequel and calling it Camp Crystal Lake, and I was like, I knew the
yeah.
title of the book was just perfect. I knew it.
Oh my god. Jeez.
It'll be
That's
so good. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's it. Like I said, like you just mentioned, like just just a multiverse. Like you could do like you said, that's perfect. Like it could be like a crime drama focused on that. Doesn't it? Like you said, doesn't have to feature Freddy. You know the story, but now you're following, like you said, the detectives and the police force
Yeah.
that's trying to solve these crimes as they're happening and stuff like that. And maybe coming across, like you said, maybe coming across Freddy at some point in the
Yeah.
series, and you'll get the nod. Obviously, as a viewer, you'll know who it is essentially. But yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. Like, I had a few thoughts on like who could like kind of like do their own version.
Ooh,
Like a
let
Rob
me hear this.
Zombie, he might be good at it. I think, with
Ooh,
especially
that'd
like
be interesting.
how crazy House of a Thousand Corpses was, and obviously he said that wasn't his favorite movie out of that was his first film, but like just how like the imagery in that, I think he would do like an amazing job with like the cerebral side of Freddy Krueger.
Oh yeah.
The,
And he cast like one of his reoccurring actors who's my
yes,
number one choice to play Freddy, like an older Freddy, is Richard Brake.
oh
So
yeah, that's
like
right, yeah, that's right.
I feel like he would be a fantastic Freddy. And of course, if Rob Zombie does it, like I went up to Richard Brake and was like, I think you should play Freddy. And he was like, I've heard that. And then I have people that I know from online who work for like major bands or like film companies. And they're like, yeah, I've been hearing rumblings about, maybe there being a Nightmare and Richard Brake coming up as Freddy. And I'm like, please,
Ah,
please, please, please. That would just be fantastic. But like,
yeah,
a younger Freddy could be like Jamie Campbell Bower or something. Like,
yeah, he'd actually,
oh,
yeah,
so many good
Richard would be awesome
choices.
because yeah, the I actually just watched 31. It's a Rob
Yeah.
Zombie movie. Yes, like he was scary in that. He's just creepy. I mean, everyone was creepy, and that's like that, and that's why Rob Zombie always pops in my head. Even with that
That's a good
movie,
choice.
the Lords of Salem, like the imagery in
Yeah.
that. If you've seen that, like that
Hmm.
brings kind of like that, like the dream sequences that he did. They're kind of out there if you were really following the movie, but something like that there. Terrifier, the creators of Terrifier and All Hallows Eve, like
Hmm.
he the what's his name? I'm forgetting the clown's
Damien?
name of the
Oh,
um,
Art
Art the
or
clown.
the
Yes,
actor.
like
Yeah.
he shows up in dreams. He's
Yeah.
kind of like that Freddy type of character. Obviously, a lot more gory on that side, but yeah, the creators of that in the VHS series that's what rounded out. So all the creators on the if you ever watched the VHS
Hmm.
movies, it's all different directors and they're all short films. But man, I think they would like really if they
That
did
would be
just like
really cool.
shorts, like maybe like a Freddy movie, kind of like in the vein of VHS, but just short stories of like different characters or something like that. And
I
you
wonder
know,
if they could do like they did with Freddy's Nightmares and have like one Freddy maybe be like the narrator, and
yeah,
then everything is like told through his eyes, and it's just somebody else's interpretation, like a different Freddy, but it's a story. And then there's like the main Freddy who looks back on that story and he talks about it. Who knows, whatever it could be, that would be pretty sweet. I
oh
would
man,
love to have it be like done really well, like Amazon or
yeah,
HBO. Somebody take the budget, take the quality, and just tear it up. And I mean, yeah, make it scary, make it gory, but also make it that like detective. So I'm telling
yeah,
you,
oh yeah,
I could just
definitely,
see it. I'll never
yeah.
put it down. And I'm begging New Line to put me in the back. I'll just serve coffee randomly. I'll be
I
like
know.
the same person at the diner. You
No,
need
you're
more coffee, Mr. Thompson? Okay, great. Thank you.
no, if they do, you definitely have to be Nancy at some point, and like if they do redo
Oh,
it, they have to give you the nod at least because you kind of like took the helm of the Nancy character, especially in the Never Sleep Again uh movie, I would say, because it is kind of long, so we'll
it
go
is
short
long.
form movie. Yeah, it's that was very interesting. How was the process of you know actually getting into that character and actually doing that? Like,
It was scary for me because Nancy is the whole reason I got into horror. She's the
mm,
reason I got into nightmares. She is like at the center of everything. I always ask myself when I'm faced with a challenge, what would Nancy do? And
yeah,
everybody's known that. So to have to like put that out there, I'm like, are people going to think, oh, she doesn't actually know Nancy? She's nothing like Nancy, because I wanted it to be my interpretation with that
yeah,
sprinkling of Heather because Heather narrated it. So I wanted to have kind of that mix of the two. And I'm really glad that people have liked it and people have enjoyed it and people have said that I did a really good job playing, because I was like, oh my gosh, because we wanted to make it like, low budget 80s kind of quality. And so I'm like, I don't know if everybody's going to understand that there's like that little bit of 80s acting that we're trying to bring in. I
yeah,
really hope that they do.
yeah.
Because
That came
honestly,
across
in the
definitely.
80s, it's not the best. Because you watch, somebody looked at me and they were like, yeah, the acting in the nightmare movies, they just have such great acting. And I was like, did
No,
you
not
really watch
really.
those movies? Did you really watch those movies? But I loved putting that together. And getting Heather involved was really, really special because one of the biggest regrets of, I think, my life, but technically of nightmare history that I never got a chance to be a part of was, not having in the films that she was in the beautiful dream living on. You just kind of have to
Yeah.
read the other materials of before or the comics, which are canon because they were commissioned by New Line. So they
Yeah.
are officially canon. So Nancy is in the beautiful dream, but you don't know that unless you know those other things. And even the light at the end, you might be like, oh, that's Freddy. But the way that I think everything pans out, it's Nancy. And I just wanted to have that closing chapter there to have Heather talk about that. And I was like, okay, now we finally got Heather as Nancy talking about living on in the beautiful dream. I feel like there's a part of me that's kind of closed that loop. We got her to do that. That's very exciting, but it was extremely nerve-wracking. But at the same time, it was like the most fun project because we've all had this idea of what we wanted, and we just love the character so much and the source material that we just put a lot of thought and heart into it. And I'm glad that people are like, we wish we had more Freddy, but like, yeah, it's Nancy's story. Like, if you think about
Yeah.
the first movie, Freddy's only in it for like 9 minutes.
Yeah.
It's really Nancy's story, and that's kind of what we wanted. We wanted it to be a drama about horror in the same way that New Nightmare is a drama about horror. Our New Nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I actually watched the first Nightmare on Elm Street because during October I try to like, watch as many horror movies as I can. I think everyone pretty much does that. And if you go on Max, HBO Max, they pretty much have all the movies there. So I watched the first one, and you are right. It definitely helped, watching that and then watching, your short film and then seeing the correlation between, like you said, the acting in it, which isn't the greatest acting, but like even like the
No.
special effects, like like the stuff you see nowadays, obviously a lot more advanced, but like even seeing like the dream sequence where she's walking up the stairs and you can see like where they cut out like the holes for her to step in, like that type of stuff. Like
It's the
I
worst.
love that though. That's
I
that's the
know.
best part about it. And I'm like a movie buff, so I always go back and watch like things like that, like where it edits or if there's like a mic in the scene, something weird like that. But just
Yeah.
seeing that and like seeing her walk up the stairs and then actually seeing already the cutouts, I was like, oh man, I love this. This is great. And then now you just
It is
saying,
so funny.
yeah. But now you saying that like that's what we interpreted was like the bad '80s acting. I'm like, that makes sense. That actually it wasn't just like it wasn't just what it was. It was that was on purpose, that type of thing. So
Mhm.
oh man, yeah, that's like it's one of those things where you could do a series on her as well. Like she could have her own, you know, series. It doesn't have to be about obviously Freddie will be the backdrop, but you could
Don't get me
follow her
started.
whole thing like from that movie on, like all that. Obviously, you got to
Okay,
see
so
her.
I have to ask you then. Okay, if they were to bring Nancy back, what do you think would be a way that you might like to see her, or you would be curious about how they could bring her back?
I I'm not sure if I'd like to see her like now. Like I'd like to see them go back during that time and kind of like cover how you did with with the short film, but like just follow her like all the way up until she gets older. Like what
Mm,
like because it didn't escape her. Like that's gonna stay with her forever. Was she still having nightmares after that? Was there, were other people in her life affected by it? There could be a whole new cast of characters. Like what happened in between those times and stuff like that. And I think you can actually do stuff like that. To reintroduce her back into like a newer version of it would be, I don't know, be kind of hard. But I don't know how you would do that actually. I would probably for me it'd probably just be going back back into that first movie and then the events afterwards and how she like how that affected her life and her relationships and all that type of stuff afterwards. That's what I would go with, but I mean,
yeah, I think that would be really cool because yeah, I mean, I would love to see like an official take on it because I know what we did was mostly based on the comics and then
yeah,
headcanon. So if they were able to do that, that would be a really interesting story because there would be so much that she would have to go through, like her mother or moving,
yep,
or how does she get her life back? How does she
yep,
decide to buckle down? I think that that would be really cool. I know people have talked about a requel right after the first. I feel like that would be extremely hard because people love part three so much. I would
Yes.
not care that much if we lost part 3 because obviously I don't like the ending, but I feel like if they were to continue, I would love to see her and Alice together officially, not just in the
Mhm.
comics, but together. Um, and if Nancy, lived in the beautiful dream, but it was like Laura Palmer in the Black Lodge,
Yes.
where Laura in season 3 is older, like today. So, bring in Heather that way. So she only has like a limited time before she officially has to cross over. So her spirit is kind of living on Earth, so it's able to grow. I don't know, explain it away. When they do those
Yeah.
things, you're like, okay, you know what? We'll go with that.
Yeah.
Because I would love to see them bring her back, but then there's like this part of me that thinks if they bring her back and they go back in the original storyline, it would be weird not to have Robert back, but he's so
Yeah.
much older now. Like Robert has reached the point where not it's going to be really hard because Robert is taking less time even at his tables. He's no longer standing
Mhm.
for photo ops. I mean, he's so
Yeah.
much older and more tired that he can barely even do that. So to have him become Freddy again would be hard, but if they would do it, I mean, pick somebody that looks like Robert
And
or can have the prosthetics and then make him look like
yeah.
Robert to have it, but you don't have to have Robert back physically because I would not want him to go through that. And I know people would not be happy because even if you look when Robert came back for the Goldbergs in 2018, there were people who were like,
Yeah.
look at Robert back as Freddy. So you can't win.
Yeah.
You just
Yeah.
cannot win. And I would much rather he be safe and like in the back, like coaching the actor and whatnot, if they're
Yes.
going to
Yep.
continue it, and maybe have his voice at some point to do it. But don't put Robert back through all of that physical stuff
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, you'd have to definitely, like, kinda recast everything in that sense, like,
Hmm.
you'd have to it is and obviously with those, short films that are out there, there are actors that can play, you know Robert, as a young guy as well as Freddy Krueger. I mean, it's proven in those.
Hmm.
It's just a matter of, whether or not as if you're a diehard fan, do you wanna see someone replace, you know, Robert Englund, but that's
If I had a
it
nickel.
yeah, I know, right? It's like that, like the newer like the reboot that they did. It was like, like it wasn't, you know, they definitely could have, if they waited a little bit longer and got the right person for it, I think it would have been better. It didn't change it. They changed the storyline up too a little bit. As far as the crimes he committed and stuff like that. I think that kind of hurt it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People always talk about that, but like, that was Wes's original intention and it was still implied, but then even the
Yeah.
actors in the documentary are like they use the M word
Yeah.
and then in
Yep.
one of the newspapers in part 5 when Alice and Mark are looking through you flip one of the newspapers and it says the M word right on
Yeah.
it, so
Yep.
technically it is like in there.
Yeah.
um but people don't, which always makes me laugh because everybody's always like, oh, he's just a child killer, like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's better,
Yeah. I know,
forgiven, it's all
right?
cool.
Yeah. I know.
No big deal, okay,
It's
whatever, have
okay if
him over
he's
for dinner.
killing them. It's not okay if he's doing it's like, what are you talking about? It's the same thing. It's a brutal crime either way. What the heck? But yeah,
Yeah.
I think if they kept the implied part of it, I think it would have been better. But if you just
Yeah.
come flat out and saying it, it's like you don't have to like second guess that. It's like if someone's
Mhm.
abducting children, like you don't have to say what's gonna happen to them. You can kinda just, like,
Yeah.
leave it to your own imagination in that sense, but
Yeah.
I think that kinda, like, maybe especially nowadays, I think that kinda, like that might be a hard thing to kinda
Yeah.
navigate, but I think there's enough creative people out there, like yourself and, like, the fans of, Fred Heads. They can definitely come up with a way and be that, like, suggestion piece of saying, "Here's how you do it in today's modern era." Like, do you have an idea of what that would look like if they were to, like, re-release Freddy, or Nightmare on Elm Street today? Like, what would you do to, like would you change his story? Would you change, like, the crimes he committed? Like, how would you go about doing that?
I would keep him as he is in the original franchise. Keep it implied. Okay, he's a child killer. Keep it implied. Maybe have a hint that it happened, because I don't think
Yeah.
Freddy did it every single time. I
Yeah.
think Freddy did it when he chose to. So he was definitely a killer first.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people comment on TikTok recently. They're like, so you like this guy who's actually a child, predator? And I'm like, for a while I was trying to think about it. Like, is it time to cancel Freddy? But the reason that we like Freddy isn't because of that. We don't condone that at all. And none of
Yeah.
us are going out and being like, I want to actually do everything that Freddy is. I mean, there have been people in the past, but thankfully
Yeah.
they're in jail. That it's what he represents for us, that spitting in the face of, everybody's like, you have to be nice. That's why a lot of actors are like, I get to be bad, and I'm super excited because you don't get to do that.
Yeah.
Freddy is just that outlet for us to let off steam. And sure, we could pick Michael or Jason. We just happen to prefer how Freddy does it. He's having fun while spitting back in the face of like the status quo, which is what I think a lot of us really want to do in the
True.
end.
It's like I said, like I think I said this at the beginning, like Freddy's like the unconventional, slasher,
Yeah.
horror like guy, if you want to say that. Like he's not like the straight up like chasing people down and doing all that stuff. Like he likes to play at
Mhm.
first and
Yeah.
manipulate a little bit and then do what he needs to do. But like that's why I think that's another reason why I think it's kind of hard nowadays for people to grasp that. It's like it's not as straightforward as like Halloween, Michael Myers, just killing a bunch of people at once. If you've seen the newer movies, like there's like a scene at the end of the second one, I believe, where he's just like going to town, just like literally
Yeah.
killing everybody. It's like that's not what Freddy does. Freddy's not the, and I think people would. It's like people would get bored of that. It's like I think that's they want to see like gore and people getting killed, but Freddy's the like you said the cerebral. I'm gonna
Yeah.
play with you first, and I'm gonna creep you out, and then I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
I think there's an
Better
audience
than
for
a
it,
jump
but
scare.
oh
I
yeah,
do
no,
too.
definitely.
I do too. It's just that long drawn out like
That scares me
tension
the
that you
most.
have. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, me too, because it builds and it builds. But the thing about Freddy is I want them to have some humor, but I would prefer it to be like Freddy in part 3 or part 2. Part 2 is extremely scary. Part
yeah,
3 is like he's scary, but he's still like using humor to pick
yeah,
at them, but he's still like sinister the entire time. He doesn't become a clown yet.
yeah,
So I feel like that would work. And you just build the tension. Yeah, you have some jump scares, but realistically, it's just all that tension. Then after it's done, maybe Freddy does something kind of fun or funny. Or maybe another character does, but Freddy kind of sticks with that dark humor, which I think
yeah.
would work.
Oh yeah, definitely. To bring it back on you, like you could definitely see that in your content and stuff like that. Like you know, you're very funny. You're very playful and stuff like that. But you kind of
Thanks.
it seems like you kind of have like an edge as well too. Is that where did you pick that like? Would you pick that up that that type of like humor and is that from the fandom side of it? Have you always had that type of like that like kind of you're just like very animated and but at the same time
You
it's like
think I'm
you're
funny?
edgy. Yes, of course. It's yeah, no,
Thank
you're very
you.
entertaining. Like I said, it's I showed Sheena, my co-host, Chick Foley, and she was like she wanted to. I was gonna have her like be my co-host on this because she doesn't really like to interview people. She's kind of like she gets like stage fright essentially. But that's
Yeah.
why I'm doing these shows. But like she was like, oh my god, so I was like, follow Sassy Sledgehammer on Instagram. And
Thank
she's
you.
like, oh my god, she's so cool. Oh my god. I think she
Thank
follows you
you.
actually now. But
Aw,
like just like see like you said, see your videos and all the stuff that you do, like in the like you said, the video I seen when you're, recommending the short films for Nightmare on Elm Street. Like very just like where did that all come about? Were you shy at first when you were younger and then it came out? Were you always very outgoing and entertaining? Like how did that start for you?
I've always been the weird girl. My family really is, especially my dad's side, is really big into jokes and humor.
Mm,
So that was always a very important part of growing up and interacting with them. My mom's side has it too, but not as much. We just laugh a lot. So that's why my laughs are very loud. And then
Yeah.
I try to be funny. It doesn't always stick like my dad. He tries to be funny and sometimes you'd be like, but I was theater kid, of course, in high school. So I did a lot of theater. And I also did speech and debate. I did it in an interpretation. So I was always making faces and doing things. And people have always told me my face is super animated. And I'm like, I used to struggle for the longest time because I wanted to be like one of those alt girls that was like, I'm fierce, you know? And I'm like, man, what can I do? But then they meet me in person and I'm like, oh, you know? So I've started to try to embrace it more. And I realized that it could be a lot for people. But I don't know. I have a lot of enthusiasm for things and I really do want to be funny. So it means a lot of people think
Yeah.
I'm funny because whenever I tell somebody something and they're like, I'm like, okay.
Well, you have to have
Cool.
like you have to have humor first and foremost. Like you have to think things are funny. If you don't
Yeah.
have that bait like that actual like base, then you're not going to think anything's funny. But like you just actually mentioned, it's like you have like kind of like a like you have like an intensity, like you said, you're kind of like very outgoing out there, but at the same time, it's like it's not in a way like people are gonna run away scared or anything like that. It's like you could see it. Like you could see like you said, you just said you were a theater kid. You could definitely see like the the animated face and all that stuff. You said you didn't think you had like you weren't animated at all? Is that what you
I didn't never really I like would look at other people and they would just like tell a joke and they'd be like and people were like ha, 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 ha. So I like always thought that my brand of funny was like clown kind of
Yeah.
funny, you know. I wanted to be one of those people that was super witty that you would like sweat if you're in the room with them. You're like, I want to see what they have to say, and you're kind of like riffing
Yeah.
off of them. I'm not very good at that.
Yeah.
I like the word pickle makes me laugh. You know, that's like kind of funny. But I think that's also why I like Freddy so much, is because he does have that sense of humor. You know, if I was like a little more like, you know, maybe I'd
Yeah.
be more of a Michael girl. I like Michael. Michael's pretty chill. You know, he's
Yeah.
wearing a William Shatner mask. That's hilarious to me.
Yeah.
But Freddy's like the, you know, he says a little something, something. He's got that swagger, you know, a little bit of
Yeah.
that. And that's just like, I feel like that's kind of my humor. And yeah, so I've just always been weird and making sounds and doing skits and all that stuff ever since I was just very, very little. So
Yeah, definitely. And
uh
he's a lot
yeah.
of dad humor too in
Oh,
Freddy. Like if you that's I mean I love dad humor, so like that's
me too.
maybe that's why like it's if you can love like the silly like corny type of jokes, and you can like any type of funny. I think anyway. You can if you can find the humor in anything, I mean I think that's where it all starts. If you can't find the humor in
So
anything,
important.
then you're not going to be able to get a grasp on what's being purveyed. But as far as like for acting, like how do you love acting? Like do you love like I said with the short films and stuff like that? Definitely we'll definitely talk about 5 stars because I thought that was awesome as well. But like, do you like the process? Do you enjoy it? Is it something that like you if someone was like, "Hey, we are rebooting, we want you to be like Nancy," say that happened, like, would you jump right at it to do it, or would you just be like, I don't know."
I I like acting because I like to entertain people. I'm usually the funny person every time somebody casts me in something. There's been a couple times where I've been a more serious character, but every
Yeah,
time I'm super outlandish, it always goes over very, very well. So I feel really comfortable in that. Every time I have to be serious, I always get very, very worried because my face is so animated. So when we were making 5 stars, I'm please rein it in. Like make a frown that looks like this and not like this, you know, like don't have
yeah,
fish mouth. But
yeah,
I saw that always makes me really nervous because I don't want to look goofy. But if somebody asked me to be Nancy, I would be so incredibly honored because I love her so much. And any opportunity that I have to talk about her, to push her at the forefront, just anything, I would love it. And I just would love to be a part of something nightmare officially, to like exist in a world where I'm like, I I was in the back. I was the janitor in the new A Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I live there. I live in Springwood. That would be the pinnacle of my entire life. Everything else would just be a bonus after that point.
Yeah.
Just being able to be in a nightmare film would be such an honor for me. But yeah, acting, I don't always seek it out because I just don't think that I'm the best actor in the world. But I've had a lot of people offer me roles and things and they've liked it. So I've been like, that's great, but I'm not very confident. But I do
Yeah.
it because usually it's a very small cast and it's just all of us. And we're like, okay, let's make a movie together. So I end up getting roped in that way, but I like to entertain people. So
Yeah, I
for
seen
sure.
what was it? I think you what was the I can't remember the name of it. One of the films I watched. It was a story of like it was almost like the it was like based on like fan obsession. Uh was it and I can't think of the name of it. You had like a quick clip in it where you're like crying about like um it was
Oh,
basically I can't think of the name of it. Why can't
is
I
it
think of
called
the name of it?
Adherent? Is it
Adhere,
a
yes,
short film?
that's what
Adherent.
it was.
Paige.
Adherent, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I watched that. Like you said, you know, you can do serious things. Obviously, you weren't like you were more like you weren't crying because something bad was happening. It was more or less like, you know, the love of this person brought you to tears essentially. So I mean that was a perfect display of a different side of your instead of being like the funny side of things. But yeah,
Well, thanks.
that was a creepy that one yeah, that one was a that was a little too real because that stuff does happen actually,
It
which is
does.
scary. Yeah, but yeah, I think that showed a good display as well.
Thank you.
Is there are there other? Would you like to do like comedies as opposed to like is that something that you know as far as acting is concerned? Could you do like a comedic role? You think?
I feel like I could. I would love to. I think that would be so much fun. If I honestly had to pick, it would have to be horror or comedy. Um, I feel like those would be the two that I would really, really like to do because I think I would probably have a lot of fun on set. And that's kind of my brand of
Mm,
like acting, I guess, where I'm more comfortable. I'm not a Meryl Streep. Even though Meryl
yeah,
Streep can do comedy and she does really well, it'd be cool if I could.
yeah.
But yeah, like horror and comedy. Who's an actor that I would think would be like horror and comedy? I
Hmm.
don't know. There's got to be somebody out there.
Uh,
I'm blanking. Well, she's also done act. Well, actually, a lot of the actors that I think that have done horror and comedy are also really good actors that have done dramas.
yeah.
So, I guess maybe I could do that, but yeah, I would love to do a comedy.
Yeah,
That'd be fun.
I could definitely see that. I could definitely see you like doing some comedic stuff as we spoke before with the you know the animated, the funny stuff like that. You definitely would be able to deliver those types of lines and stuff like that. But
Thanks.
yeah, I think that'd be an avenue that you could pursue because like I said, mostly like most of the videos that you put out are pretty hilarious. So I think you
Oh,
just have that.
thanks.
Yeah, it's just like the like I said, the animated like the animation is the best part. Yeah, obviously, you know, not comparing you to like Jim Carrey or like Robin Williams or anything like that, but like that type of comedy is like lost. That like you know
It
the animated, the
is.
expressive type of it's more or less like straight jokes and things nowadays, and you know being sarcastic and that type of stuff. There's not really anyone that's like you know that does like anything funny and you know expressive and stuff like that.
You're
So like
right.
yeah, just if you think about it, there isn't really like there's really
No,
no expressive, funny type of comedians out there that do like funny faces
no.
and all that type of stuff, and you know,
There's
body
no more
movements.
Adam Sandler kind of comedies or like, yeah,
No,
Jim Carrey kind of comedy. You're totally right.
nope. Yeah, it's a lost art in comedy. I'm a comedy person
I
as
like
well, so
comedies too.
I kind of watch that too. But um, the next thing I want to jump into before we get into like the 5 stars, you're your fandom of Freddy. Where did that start? Did that start at a young age? Was it? I mean, did it start at a young age? Was he like a heartthrob thing? You have like a poster of Freddy on your wall, and you're like, he's so he's
I
so
did write
dreamy.
smut. I'm not gonna lie. I wrote some fan fiction. Okay.
Oh, geez,
I think it's still on DeviantArt. Maybe it might be.
like
Yeah.
Twilight type of fan
Oh
fiction,
yeah.
or
Oh
okay,
yeah. There was some. I had a very big crush on Freddy. Um, no, it didn't start until I was a teenager, but when I was younger, it's like Heather says in New Nightmare, every kid knows who Freddy is. He's like Santa Claus.
yeah,
So the movies would kind of be on TV. My cousin got me started into horror because he loved the Universal monsters. And so I'd watch that whenever I'd be over my grandma's house or something. And he had like Tales from the Crypt. And so I'd kind of watch that with him. And my birthday's in October. So I was always very, very curious, but I was not a horror fan. I was, in fact, afraid of a lot of things. But I just, had a dream, oddly enough, kind of fitting, and woke up and was just like, that Freddy dude, man, I want to know more about him. And that's when I started to rent the movies and I just fell in love with them. Um, Loved his character, started with the later ones and then saw the first one, fell in love with Nancy, and then kind of the rest from there is history.
What did the so obviously so if you listen to like the Chick Foley show and stuff, we talk about figure collecting and collecting in general. Where did the collecting part of the fandom come in? And what was the first thing that you actually purchase? And then you were just like, I got to get all this stuff,
Mm,
like, because that's a deep dive. Like once you start like becoming a fan of something, and then you start collecting it, it brings you
yeah,
to a whole another realm. So
it
where did that
does.
start?
Um, it's really hard to say the first thing that I bought. So the first couple of Freddy items I have are actually a gift from one of my best friends in high school. She gifted me, I think the first thing was for my birthday, and it was the VHS of Freddy versus Jason. And then for
Okay,
Christmas, she got me this Freddy doll and then the squirtable Freddy head. Wait, right there.
okay,
So those were the first items in my collection. And then I think from there, I picked up some like the I Am Nancy poster after I met Heather. I had a very small collection. There's like pictures on the internet of like this little tiny shelf with just like some small things. And people started sending me stuff, a lot of
mm,
Nancy stuff. And so that's kind of where it started. And then from there, I was just like, oh, there's books. Oh, there's like these different things. Oh, look at this Freddy doll. I love this. And then it just started to build and build. And then a lot more things once I knew more of what was out there, like my New Nightmare painting. Somebody had it.
mm,
New Nightmare is my favorite. I'm like, I've got to get that. And then there's like certain items in the Nightmare world that are like up there as far as quality goes. So this glove right here is from Demented Glove Works. I love the Freddy gloves so much. They're like one of my favorite parts of the entire franchise. I really
yeah,
wanted a part one, got that. Because there's like a couple of different really well-known glove makers. One of them is Anders Ericsson, who makes gloves for Robert. That's Robert, one of Robert's best
mm,
friends, and also his official glove maker. So I've got my eye on a New Nightmare glove from Anders. So that's the next thing I'm going to purchase. But then, like the masks, there's all kinds of Freddy masks out there, but the holy grail is Dark Ride Studios, James Updegraff. They make you look so much like Robert. I have one. I got it repaired recently. Um, that is a holy grail. And then sweaters. There's a woman named Margaret out of Germany who makes really authentic sweaters. And she actually just retired because she's very ill. And
mm.
I put in my order and I finally got a Margaret sweater.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so, like, those things are just such big parts of like the collecting. And the more little Freddies I can have, or like,
Yeah.
just things from the movies. I made my little Nancy Sledgehammer. You can't see the top there, but like those things, being able to have them. And some people collect, the movies or the different kinds of Blu-rays or things like that. For me, I just like having all the pictures and the toys and the t-shirts. And I guess, I don't know, I think it's because when I was a little kid, I had a lot of Barbies.
Yeah.
And I'd love to put them on display. And I had like Disney dolls and stuff. So I've always just liked the physical representation of things. So I think that's where this comes in. And then things like the glove or the booby trap book or the telephone, make me feel like I've got a piece of the movies, even if they're not directly out of the movies. Even though
Yeah.
some people do have that, I would love to own a piece of something from the movies,
Jeez.
but I know that's heckin' expensive.
Oh yeah, no,
Like the
definitely.
Freddy glove is going for like $100,000. I think it
Wow.
just closed out actually. I don't know how much it went for, but yeah, the OG Freddy glove. That
Jeez.
would be very cool. But can you imagine having that kind of money to just be like, darling, I'm getting this $100,000. Like,
Yeah, like
what?
like I said, we talk about this all the time. We like, we'll do like we'll have people like, give us questions and stuff like that. And one of the questions that always pops up is if you had the, the money to purchase, a holy grail as they call it, in the collecting world, like what would your holy grail be? And like that's definitely a holy grail for somebody.
Yeah,
$100,000 on that's insane. But it's, I
yeah.
mean,
Mine would
it's,
be the Nancy Jammies. Those would be my
that's
holy grail. That or the house. Both.
the house. That's definitely a holy grail. Owning that, like obviously people still, visit and stuff like that. And I live,
They put up the gate. Ugh.
yeah.
Have you seen it?
Well, oh
Like
yeah,
they're
no,
actively working to hide the house.
so no, so no, it's funny. I live in Massachusetts. I live about like 30 minutes away from Salem. I used to live in Salem, Massachusetts.
Dope.
Um, and the the witch's house, not the witch's house,
Oh,
sorry.
Hocus Pocus.
Hocus Pocus house, they actually blocked that off this year. Like you could not go see it. Like they actually put they kind of so if you ever been to Salem during the month of October,
I
it's
haven't, but I
literally
really want to.
insane. Like it's like yeah, so like what they did was
Not
like
during October.
they shortened the street so like you can't even go down that street to see the house because I guess
What?
people are complaining and stuff. So yeah, so you can't see the Hocus Pocus house ever. You can
See, I
still
don't
obviously see,
understand that.
the Samantha statue and you can still go see the
Yeah.
graveyard and all that stuff. I love because I brought this up earlier. I love the fact that Lords of Salem was filmed there because like every time like they're walking by something like, oh my god, that's that place. That's it. They
That's
literally filmed
cool.
that in Salem. Like all the places that they are in, that they're there. Like
That's
I
awesome.
can
I
vouch for it.
really
It's
want to
pretty
go,
awesome.
but I have been told don't go during October. So
Oh no,
I
it's
would
awful.
definitely go another
It's the
time.
worst.
Yeah.
The traffic
It
is
must be
awful.
like
Like
Disney and Christmas,
it's
which is
literally
the worst. Don't ever go for Christmas.
it's literally the Disney for like horror fans and witchcraft and all. And there's shops and stuff like that. There's legit warlocks and witches that own
That is
businesses and
so
stuff like that.
cool.
I've worked with a few of them before. They kind of freaked me out a little bit, but other than that, yeah. But I don't know where I was going with that, but I actually know it's funny. I did live on in Elm Street when I was younger because the famous words from Freddy Krueger, every town has an Elm Street. And
Yeah,
then
it's
my
true.
my parent, yeah, my it was a dead end street actually too. So it was a dead end street.
Oh,
It was the funny thing it was a dead end street. You're gonna think I'm joking, and it was the last house on the left.
I love that.
How weird is that?
I love that.
And my
That's
mother,
cool.
and so my mother was like, "Oh, you never heard that movie, Last House on the Left?" I'm like, "No." And then obviously we proceeded because it was old school. We went and rented it. I watched it, and obviously I was freaked out as a child. And then finding out that we lived on an Elm Street when we are starting to learn streets and stuff like that. And then hearing
That's
Freddie said it,
cool.
I'm like, "Oh Jesus Christ, oh God, what the hell's gonna happen to me?"
We
But
had a cornfield next to my house growing up, so I was always like,
chil-
"Ooh, the creeper's coming for
oh, the
me,"
Children
because
of the
that
Corn.
freaked me out. Oh
Oh,
yeah, that
too.
too.
That's another one. But what I was going to say was, as far as like the community aspect, because one of the things that we love about, well, I love about doing these types of shows and actually podcasting
Mhm.
in general is the people that we meet, the like-minded people, the people that are obviously in your community. Like, what is that like? Like, how was that like meeting other fans? Did you have to seek them out? Did they come out and reach out to you? Was it, how did that work? Like with us, it's like, you know, people listen to the podcast or we'll follow somebody
Mhm.
and then we'll meet someone mutual in that aspect. And I might even find someone that I'm friends with that knows like a podcaster or something like that. So like, how does that work out with the Fred heads? Was it like, do you know everybody? Or is it like, is it still like, is it small enough where everyone knows each other, or is it big enough where you haven't met everyone yet?
It's tough. I think in the community, if you're really deep in it, it's like a smaller group of people that are really deep in it, and everybody knows everybody who's deep in it.
Okay.
And then you've got the broader community of more people that they really like Nightmare and whatnot. So like the people behind Fred Heads, all of us, we're in the deeper community. Me, I'm a part of all like the Freddy Glove Ninja Clan, where everybody talks about the gloves and glove making and all of the different Nightmare boards. And I met a lot of people on Nightmare on Elm Street Films.com back in the mid 2000s when we were just like there to talk about our love for the films. It was before social media was really a thing. That's where we all connected. And then there was like the Springwood Slasher forum. So it really started on all those forums. And then social media came and we were just kind of like, hey, I'm on social media. You're on social media from the boards. And then it would be like friends of friends, or someone would like come across you and add you, or you'd add them, or you'd see on a like a Facebook page they love the same thing you did, so then I just like add them or they'd add me, and then it was just kind of like randomly coming across them on social media over time. But most of my friends I met were my deeper friends were between 2007 and 2013, I'd say, is
Okay.
kind of the early days of social media. That's when we came across each other. And we all met online first, and then we met in person, and we've stayed friends ever since. But a lot of it is just boards, um, Twitter, Instagram,
Mm.
Facebook. Facebook is really where a lot of us also met, and then we kind of branched out from there. But now there's just a lot of different avenues. It's just kind of coming across somebody on social media randomly.
That's awesome.
But there is a small group in there.
So it's not like a large amount of fans out there. It's still like a small knit community essentially when it comes
Yeah.
to. Would you is there like do you want to kind of like expand like and try to like find other people kind of like Will Smith and I Am Legend like every
Yeah.
day just going out there going if you're out there that type of thing is there like
That's
is there
Yeah,
is there
that's
anything
kind
like
of what
that?
I do. Yeah, I do that all the time because I'm still getting people who will message me and be like, I watched Fred Heads and I had no idea that there were, a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street fans like me. And I'm like, oh my God, the internet's been around so long. How do you not know?
Yeah,
But
no.
welcome. Or like TikTok, when people are like, somebody out there likes these films like me. So it's kind of putting it out there to find people, or searching through hashtags or topics or something, and someone mentions Nightmare, you see that they love it, I immediately will follow them, start interacting with them. So it is kind of like that mix of, hey, are you out there? Now it's a little easier than it was in the beginning, because in the beginning I was like, I'm looking for Nancy fans. You like
Yeah.
Nancy? You don't like Nancy that much? I'm going to make you like Nancy. And so that was like the big thing. And now I'm just trying to do that in the broader scope of Nightmare and continue to get people on board. And I'm like, come, love Nightmare more, learn about Nightmare, keep the fandom alive, because
Yeah.
like we talked about earlier, it's not really on top of everybody's mind because all these other horror franchises are blossoming, but Nightmare is just kind of like, hey, what's up? I've got this section of 5 things here in Spirit Halloween. I hope you
Yeah.
like them. And
Yeah.
so yeah, just trying to keep it alive and inspire people to like more. So whenever somebody comments and is like, you inspired me to watch the Nightmare films, or I loved them, now I'm getting back into them, that always makes me really happy because that's what I want.
Ye
I want them to grow and take over.
I actually, you know what? That's actually you actually brought up like a question I want to ask. So, like, is it what do you think it is as far as do you think there are fans out there and they just don't want to say they're fans of it? Do you think they think it's weird? Because like, just coming from me, being a wrestling fan, that was always a thing. Like, you didn't want to tell people you were into wrestling because people thought you were weird. But obviously nowadays it's like a multi-billion-dollar industry and
Yeah.
all this stuff. But like, is it? Do you think that's like a? Do you think that's like a thing within that community? It's like, I don't know if I want to, bring out my fandom because people think I'm weird. Is that? Do you think that's a cause of it, or do you think it's just What do you think it is as far as?
I think it's very similar to wrestling, and I think Halloween has become such a like mainstream thing now, and you could go into just random stores and they've got horror shirts on the
Yep.
walls now, just like for kids, they're wearing it. And it's almost like the band shirts because people think it's cool. People want to look cool. People want to look
Yeah.
edgy. So horror, like being an actual fan, I think is a lot cooler now than it used to be.
Yeah.
People might not be as big into it, or if they do, like younger people, big droves of fans are really into Scream. Like the
Yeah.
younger generations are really big into certain things and they want to talk about it and
Yeah.
they want to feed into it. But Nightmare, not as much because Nightmare has not yet appealed to Gen Z. Nightmare
Yeah.
hasn't done anything to really appeal to Gen Z. So that is an untapped market. And I feel like the next Nightmare installment comes out, the Nightmare content pops off, the next movie comes out, Gen Z, they appeal to that younger generation. Younger generation's like, oh, I'm such a big fan of that. And then it really starts to blossom and people talk more and more about it. But yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, because I was actually thinking of that. I was like, wow, it's like it's almost like similar where it's like you didn't really want to say that you're a fan, but at the same time, then you find someone that's like minded. You're like, oh my god, now I can
Yeah.
express this type of thing. And like just like you said, it was I was kind of like one of those people where, like I said, just scrolling on TikTok, end up seeing one of your videos, and that kind of like sparked something that said, hey, me, obviously I'm not like a super diehard fan, but like it kind of like sparked something to me that said like, hey, that I was at once like a huge fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street series, and that kind of like brought me back into the world because obviously, like I said, I've started watching all the the short films and stuff like that, and seeing all the different actors portray Freddy, and obviously watching your film. And then just deep diving, watching the Fred Heads documentary and stuff like that, and getting like the background on like, wow, I didn't know there was actually like a community of people um that were into the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise because it's always one of
Yes.
those things where it seems lost in like the
Yeah.
in the world of horror. It's like Freddy's there, he's like that figure, but like we said, throughout the shows, like the Halloweens and the Friday the Third, even Texas Chainsaw Massacre has a new video game out and a new
Man,
new
I
movie.
know.
Like not that I mean, obviously,
They're really
you,
reaching at this point. There's like the most
yeah,
random horror movies, and they're like, it's getting another sequel. And I'm like, Nightmare, what the fudge? Like,
yeah. It's like like I said, not to knock those like franchises, but like I said, they're more straightforward. They're not as
yeah,
like I said, cerebral or as like tricky to write for as Freddy Krueger, but it definitely can happen. Like I said, with Terrifier, which kind of has those
yeah.
elements, you can definitely do it. It's looking Terrifier.
But even
There's a
like
third movie coming out.
Chucky,
Chucky,
like,
I was gonna say that Chucky's coming out.
yes,
He has a series
dude,
out
he's
now.
got this massive series. If you would have told me that there's going to be a Chucky TV series, I'd be like, who
In
the heck's going to watch
2023.
that? They're doing such a good job with it. It's
Yeah,
campy, it's perfect. It's the tone that I love when it comes to like any Chucky films. Bride of Chucky is my favorite.
yeah,
But like all of that, I love the way that they're doing it. That kind of stuff I don't think would work for Nightmare, nor do I think it should be Nightmare. But for Chucky, it's perfect. But like still, people have been talking about the Mount Rushmore of horror. They're always like Michael, Jason, Freddy, who else? And I'm like, you've got
yeah,
Michael and Jason, and they're bopping. Jason's
yeah.
trying to bop. But Freddy, what's he doing?
I
What are
mean,
you doing?
you have to throw Leatherface in there, I guess now, right? He's like the
Yeah.
video game, and I mean that's another thing I see on TikTok all the time. People just live streaming their them playing the game because you can either play Leatherface or you can play the victims trying to hide from Leatherface. So that's
Yeah.
actually pretty
That's
cool.
such a good
Like I said,
idea.
it's just a tricky movie to pull. Like not, it's just like I said, it's very hard to do that nowadays with like I said, it's a lot more thought that goes into the Freddy movies and
Mhm.
like a standard, horror slasher flick. Like you have to have those dream sequences. You have to
Yeah.
play between reality, in the dream world and stuff like that. So, I mean, you just need people that are up for the task to do that.
Yeah.
So,
They just
but
got I just want the couple studios to get together and be like, "All right, Craven Estate, we're putting our money together. We're gonna take this. We're
yeah,
gonna take this. We're gonna make it."
Yeah,
make a movie, make
exactly.
a video game, do those things, have the original actors from different things come and voice characters in the video games,
Yeah,
have new characters, play as Freddy, play in story mode for you and like a couple of friends maybe, or play Friday the 13th style where there's a bunch of teens and one of you is
yep,
Freddy, and then you have like that kind of stuff. I feel like
yeah,
that
be
would be
cool.
so fun, and you could do so much with that.
Yeah,
But yeah, it all comes back to the Craven estate. If they don't
yeah,
budge, I'm gonna start showing up at doors. I'm gonna be
yeah.
like,
You might.
"Hi, I'm Diandra.
You might as well. I
I'm
mean,
gonna
it's.
beg you."
I mean, the other thing too, he was actually in I forget which Mortal Kombat game it was recently
Oh
too,
yeah,
Freddy Krueger. So like perfect fit
yeah.
for Mortal Kombat too as well. Like him, obviously if you follow Mortal Kombat, the Nether realm, and
Mm-hmm.
like it's just he's just fit for the to do it. It's just hard to pull it off for some reason. But I want to get into 5 stars. How did that come about? Because that's I was like, I see the trailer for it, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta watch this. And then obviously, I did watch it. And it's literally 5 minutes too. It's 5 stars.
Yeah,
It might be a little bit over 5 minutes, but five
it's like
minutes,
two
5 minute
two
watch.
seconds or something like
Yeah,
that.
and it's very entertaining. How did that come about?
Thank you. Well, with the strikes, Jason, that's my boyfriend, and I were like, what could we do that's going to be interesting? And Jason had this great idea. He's like, what if we got on a live and we asked the people who follow us and just like our group of friends, come on, and we'll all just start tossing out ideas. We'll make this together. So just a community of whoever was on the live was like, what about this? What about this? And we're like, but what do you think? Who do you think should be the killer? How do you think this should play out? And so together, going back and forth with this audience, we kind of came up with this concept for 5 stars, which was originally called Dash Slash.
Oh, okay.
um,
I actually like that
but
too.
we so then Jason and I took the idea, and like I wrote an outline of kind of how I thought it would go, and then he massaged it, and he started laying out some of the shots, and we were looking over it and talking about it together, and we just wrote it out based on the conversation that we just had with everybody on the live stream. And we decided to change it to 5 stars because we felt like Dash Slash was a little too corny for the way that we took it. But it was interesting because my original idea for the short was more like typical little bit campy
Yeah.
slasher, maybe like maybe a totally killer approach or freaky, because I
Yes.
really like horror comedies, especially the way that Blumhouse does them.
Yep.
And his was a little more cerebral. And so we went with 5 stars, and we just kind of went back and forth. We're like, what should it say on the window at the end? Should it say thanks? And I'm like, no, it should say 5 stars. And we're like, oh my God. And so we just kind of went back and forth with all of that and shot it over 2 nights. And Jason did all the editing. And it was really funny because as we were doing it, he would take a shot because it was just the two of us. So we're like, we hope we like got everything in focus. Like, how does it look? So he'd take the camera and he'd plug it into his computer, and then he would be in costume, just looking at it, editing it as we're making it. And then we would decide like, okay, we don't need to do that. Okay, maybe we need to put this in here. Where should this go? And so we're changing it and adding it as we're doing it over these 2 nights. I think we filmed from like 7 p.m. to like 2 in the morning on a Friday and Thursday night. And yeah, he did such a good job with editing. I think he has such an eye because he watches a lot of filmmaking, like YouTube videos and equipment. So he's put a lot of thought into these, and then we invested in just this different kind of equipment. But he really is the master behind the cinematography and editing there. I was just mostly DP, and I thought, okay, we'll make the girl the killer. But because I also had to be the victim, he also had to play the killer most of the movie,
Yeah.
except for
Yep.
like the ending or a couple of insert shots where it had to be close up on my eyes. So he was just a real trooper, just managing it. I mean, he really was the director of this project, and I was just kind of going along with it. And we want to continue to do more shorts because we love creating and watching individual things. But yeah, it really just started by a community approach, which we loved because everybody had so many good ideas. So we want to keep doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's definitely like an integral part of like um what you do. You could definitely tell that in watching that. And pretty much all the stuff that you do, you could definitely does he do all the like the YouTube stuff as well? Um
Yeah,
okay.
he's the editor. For a lot of our shows, we'll come up with ideas, or most of the lives, I'll come up with ideas. We
Mm,
just kind of go back and forth like a team. He does not feel as comfortable in front of the camera. He's very much a behind the scenes kind of
yeah,
guy, but that allows me to think about more of how I'm going to manage myself or manage a show, or like the areas that I want to take it into.
yeah,
Because if it wasn't for him, like we have sound blankets and like lights here and here, and I mean, all of this like visual stuff, the audio was all him. And
yeah,
so he is a huge part, and we just riff off of each other. It really is a combination, but it's mostly horror, which is the area of my
yeah,
expertise. And so we have just this balance between the two of us. I might be in front, and so I like to try to have him and let people know that he's such an important part. But as for my social media stuff, that's mostly me, but our YouTube stuff is the two of
yeah.
us.
Yeah, so I was saying, I obviously, I wasn't gonna overload myself too crazy, but I like went through, I skimmed through all the YouTube page and stuff like that, and seen all the different like the shows and things like that. Do you plan on continuing any of those, like like the coffee show that you have?
Yeah.
What else am I got? So the reading one was pretty. I didn't watch all the every single chapter, but I thought that was a awesome idea. Just picking a book and then doing like kind of like an audio version of it, or audio slash video version of it. Um,
Yeah.
are there plans to do more things like that on that
We would
page?
love to. We definitely do. We have all these ideas of things that we want to delve more into, but we've just been like figuring out how we could do it because we're trying to respect the strike. Because so much of what I
Yeah.
love
Yep.
and everything is really close. I'm close with a lot of the actors from the Nightmare films, and so I want to respect them and show solidarity with them. But there's like we have our snacks and scream show where I watch a horror
Yep.
movie that and just like review it, but it's also like promoting and entertaining it, and then pair it with a snack. And the next one we're going to do is Leprechaun 3, but we haven't like done it yet because we didn't want to like promote the movie too much, or we
Yeah.
want to do like list videos, but we haven't done that because we're like we're like scared to like promote the
Ye-
movies directly and be like,
Yeah.
go watch this. And then there's a bunch of like, people always ask me to rank like the Freddy appearances or the Nightmare movies, which I've never done publicly, but I'm going to do
Mm,
that after the strike ends. But I want to start doing video essays too, because I love watching things like that and delving into, what's going on in the horror community, what's
Yep.
going on in the world of Nightmare, and things like that. So we plan to do more of that, but we also get invited to do a lot of coverage events. So we like to feature that as well. And so we're always just trying to find, because our mission is to make horror funner, because
Yeah.
horror is fun and there's a lot of things you could do, but we always try to interject like our little quirky senses of humor and our unique, like wherever we come from. We also want to do more cosplay videos, because I love cosplay. That's how I like the main thing that I started to do when I first got into creating things in horror. So, but it's just there's been like little bits here and there, but we haven't done like the big push yet because
Yeah.
of the strikes. So we're just like, can we do this? Can we not do this? We could do a
Mm.
little bit of this, but let's not do it too much. So we definitely want to do more. We're just like nervous with all of that. But the coffee show, we have our next episode filmed. And we've not said this out loud, but I'm going to tell you right now.
Oh, awesome.
I actually reviewed Lisa Wilcox's coffee with Lisa Wilcox here in the studio.
Oh,
So I'm
wow.
over here and she was here, and we just did like this riff back and forth, and we reviewed the coffee and we talked a little bit about, we played a couple of games, but yeah.
That's
So,
awesome.
and there might be some chances in the future to do more stuff with Lisa, because Lisa actually she's a local, she's here in Vegas.
Okay.
And we and there's some others, like the Nightmare Cast comes through from time to time for like events and things, so I might be doing some things with some other people in the near future. But the coffee is definitely making a comeback, and we want to do more shows involving the people who help to make the coffees.
That's awesome.
So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, Lisa Wilcox is the first episode in the new installment of how we're doing Spooky Sips.
Yeah, I always wanted to do something with like I love coffee. And there's a that's one of the things I kind of want to incorporate, either that or beer. But there's a lot of there's a lot of
Ooh.
like podcasts I do, like, you pick a beer and kind of like kind of like how you do with the snack, like put the beer with the movie, like how it interprets it and stuff like
Oh,
that. And
that's cool.
there's tons of different types of, obviously, like local breweries and things like that that do all these like obscure types of beers and stuff like that. So that's
But you
actually
know what? I would do that because you're like, you have your own unique spin.
yeah,
So
true.
even if other people do it, you could still find it a way to make it you.
Oh yeah, like I said, there's plenty of people that do for like what I'm doing now. There's plenty of people that do like interview type shows, but like I said, mine's more of mine's more of like a personal thing, because it's like I said, it's like people that I find interesting. I'm not sure if anyone else is, but I can kind of like gauge, like the audience that we have for our core audience is gonna listen regardless. But like I think something like this is awesome, because I get to reach out to the people that I find interesting, and that I want to kind of, like I said, pick their brains and see like how how this started, like where they get the idea from, all that type of stuff. So like I said, I could definitely think of doing something like that, but I'll stick with this for now, and then maybe branch off into something.
Yeah,
But
don't overwhelm yourself.
yeah, no, definitely no. I already do I think I do 3. So I do this one and I do 2 other podcasts. So I'm not. Yeah, it gets a little, obviously it gets a little crazy just sitting down and talking for hours and hours. But I want to I want to get into the name. Where'd the name come from?
Oh yeah. Sassy Sledgehammer.
Yes.
So when I was thinking about, well, my usernames on everything used to be Nancy Thompson 1428, but I was like, well, what if down the line I want to do other things, because I like a lot of different things. So what's something that represents me, but also gives a nod back to Nancy? And Nancy has her sledgehammer in the first movie. And I'm
That's
like,
right.
well, I think that sledgehammer is so important. And I kind of want to have, the couple of letters going together. So how do people sometimes describe me? Sassy. So I guess Sassy
Okay.
Sledgehammer. I hope it works out. I really hope, and I've been thankful, because if I was still Nancy Thompson 1428 across everything, I'd be like,
Yeah.
ooh. And if I was D Laser, like, okay, yeah, people would remember the name, but I always get compliments on Sassy Sledgehammer. So I'm like, I feel pretty confident in that. So whenever somebody tries to ask me, like, what should I pick for my username? I'm like, well, think down the line about, what's important to you. And if you do well, 10 years from now, is that
Yeah.
name going to be important? Are you going to go from, like, what was it? Lil Bow Wow to, did he call himself something else? Or Snoop Dogg to Snoop Lion,
Yeah.
something like that, where you're going to want to change it, because rebranding is never easy.
Yes.
So find a name that really you're cool with, whatever it's going to be. If it represents you, go with it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Definitely.
that's how Sassy Sledgehammer came about. Has
No,
a
that's
little bit of Nancy, but it also has a little bit of yeah in it,
yeah.
which I like.
I like it. It was like it was something. Yeah. The captain part of it is that your
Oh
boyfriend,
yeah,
right?
so when we decided to do the YouTube channel together, he on all of his social medias was like the captain something.
Okay.
So now he's the camera captain, and I'm like, okay, the captain, and then Sledgehammer be weird, but people usually call me Sassy because it's the first part of Sassy Sledgehammer.
Yeah.
So we just said, let's just combine it and just be Captain Sassy. And then we just went and
Mm.
found like a little picture and used some Photoshop and created the little logo. And we've been talking about like me actually creating a cosplay for Captain Sassy and like bringing her on YouTube or bringing her to shows
That'd
and
be
doing
awesome.
something like that. It's almost like like Joe Bob has his like cowboy thing, or Elvira has her like
Yeah.
Mistress of the Dark outfit. And so just having this captain is just super weird, but I love dressing up. And when you put on an outfit that's not you, you can
Yeah.
like do something a little bit different or unique. And I just thought that that would be kind of cool. So I've been looking at captain costumes to bring her to life.
Oh, all right. Yeah, because
Yeah.
I thought it was like the Captain Power was based off of Captain Spaulding from
Oh,
from House of a Thousand Corpses, and obviously, the
I'm
Three from Hell
sorry.
and Devil's Rejects and stuff. And I was like, oh, but obviously now I know the actual
Mhm.
thing. But yeah, that'd be actually pretty cool if you like brought that character to life. Um, that's an element obviously that you can bring up, that'll like obviously expand on your brand and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the things I sent you was like, what's your what are the do you have any like plans for your brand, and then everything as a whole? Like, is there like, I know like you said you bringing back the series and stuff like that, but is there more movies down the line? Is it is there an expansion? Are we looking to take this thing global and corporate? What do we do with that?
That is such a good question because, when I started doing this, I was like, my mission, everything is to bring Nancy to the people. And that was
Mm,
everything that I wanted. So I just talked about Nancy. And then after a while, having people tell me, like, oh my God, you're the Nancy girl. I'm like, swin, did it, got this, got that. Okay, we got more Nancy in the world. I feel accomplished. Now it's like, what do we want to do? Do we want to make more movies, which we do? Do
mm,
we want to get into filmmaking? Like, are we going to, because that's why we also thought about Captain Sassy Media, is that we would start also doing more films. So, like, helping be a production company of sorts. But also, and this is where it gets really hard for me because I like watching all horror. People love it when I talk about Nightmare, and obviously that's the number one. Like I could talk for hours about that. I'm
yeah,
still learning about everything else, but I want to start branching out to do more coverage of like other things. But I'm not very good at interviewing people. I'm like not. I like talking to people, but when it comes to like about movies, I'm like, that's not really my thing.
yeah,
Cosplay, definitely. Fan culture, going to events and
mm,
featuring it or featuring somebody's story, even like doing this, but like making little documentaries about creators that I love, or like
yep,
brands that are spooky that I love, or like we've got Nightmare Toys here in Las Vegas. Like, let's talk about their story and do a little tour of it or something like that. Because we already have a lot of people who do really good location tours and things like that. So, trying to find the areas that make us happy and what we like to talk about so that we don't ever get bored with it. But also making it interesting. And since we have had a chance to do a lot of things in my life, I've gotten opportunities that not everybody has. I'd
yeah,
like to give people a peek into that as well. So usually it's fun stuff and then just story based kind of content to show
mm,
people what else is out there in the world of horror, or the things that we really like talking about. And I want to continue to showcase. And
awesome.
of course, more Nightmare as much
Oh
as
yeah,
possible.
that's always that's the main goal there. That's obviously the main goal.
Yeah.
Um, what is it? What are some other you know obviously we talked in we went crazy with all this stuff, but what are the other things do you have any other interests? Like, what are the do you have, like, are you into sports? Are you into hunting,
Mm.
hiking? I don't know, any like music? Do you sing? Are you a like, are there
I
any other things you love besides horror and stuff?
Yes. I love the Phantom of the Opera.
Oh, okay.
That was a big thing when I was a kid. I like don't do much with that, but I love Phantom. I am a huge classic rock and roll fan. I also really like watching videos on like music and metal and things like that. I have a smaller, much smaller than this AC/DC collection because they're my favorite band. So I have my
Okay.
little lightning bolt here. Um, so I know a lot about them. Have a lot, I like anything them. I do like Disney a lot. I liked the show Once Upon a Time a
Oh,
lot.
I love that show.
Um, that was my so if you ever search the Regina Mills on TikTok, you'll see how I started on TikTok, which was doing Regina Mills content, which was going
Oh,
very,
okay.
very well for me in 2020. But then I I want to grow out my hair
Yeah.
and just different things, and I just stopped doing it. But I think I had like 222,000 people by the end of 2020, and I just wanted every
Whoa.
time I'd create more horror content, people would be like, "Where's Regina?" So then I just created Sassy
Uh,
Sledgehammer this year, and then occasionally would do Regina content. So I did that for a while. I'm trying to learn how to sew so that I can make my
okay.
own costumes because I love like I said, I love cosplay. And there's like, I would love to make one of Regina's Evil Queen costumes from Once Upon a Time, or like redo my Nancy pajamas in a better
Ah,
quality, like material, and make it as accurate as possible. And do something like that, make my own costumes, help other people. Cause I'm such a sucker for accuracy that I feel like that would be the best avenue for me, but it
yeah.
really is a lot of just like movies. I'm trying to continue to learn how to roller skate because people who roller skate just seems like so much fun. Um, but yeah, it's like bands and movies and goofy things and dressing up are like everything that I love to do. I also really like eating food, so I'm always down to eat, you know, or like travel somewhere, do something new. But yeah, that's most of what my life is because I've been thinking like, what other hobbies can I have?
Mm,
And like the things that I do professionally are also the things that are my hobbies. So
yeah.
it just kind of like all melts together. But yeah, I love rock and roll. I like music, and I'm trying to become a better cosplayer,
I was
I
gonna
guess
say
you
you could
could say.
definitely reach out to. I'm not. I'm pretty sure she'd help out. Her name. I think I said it before. Over the Moon Salt. She does like a
Mhm.
lot of cosplay. She does her own costume. She stitches everything. Hand stitches. She doesn't do any. She
Oh
said
my
she's trying to
gosh.
learn how to do like the machine, the sewing machine. She knows. She said she
Yeah,
knows how to use it like a little bit, but everything that you see if you go to her page is literally all hand stitch, which is
that's
pretty amazing.
amazing.
And like I said, I had her on the Halloween special that we did because she was a costume portion of it, so we talked to her
Yeah.
about costumes and stuff. But yeah, she does amazing work, and I'm pretty sure if you like DM her and ask her like how to get started, she'll definitely help you out.
I would
She's
love
awesome.
that.
Yeah,
You know
she
Allison Tabitha? Have you followed her?
I think
She makes
no.
all her costumes, and she does like makeup on her face to make her look like it's just cosplayers are incredible. Like the first cosplayer I ever came across was in college, and it was Yaya Han, whom I still
Yes,
love to this day.
I follow her. Yeah,
Oh,
she was like one of the first ones I started
amazing.
following. Oh
Yes.
no, Allison Tabitha. Yeah, she
Yeah.
I followed her because of the her Wonder Woman cosplay. 'Cause she looks
Yes.
literally exactly like Gal Gadot. So I was like, is that her? And I was like, no, it isn't. It's
Yeah.
it's someone else. Yeah,
She's such a chameleon. It's
she's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah, she's
And like
yeah.
everything that people do now, like 3D printing, I'm like, that's like incredible. Like that's such an art form. You look at these people who make these like because another thing that I love to do is watch YouTube videos that are just like San Diego Comic Con cosplay.
Yeah,
I love watching videos like that, and just I love genetic cosplayers, people who look like the actors. I think that's so cool. You don't have to look like the actors to do a good job, but the people who really
yeah,
look like the actors, I'm always like, "Oh my gosh, this is
yeah.
incredible." And then just some of the really big costumes, and I'm obsessed with cosplay. I love it so much. It's incredible what people do and make with their hands.
Yeah.
Ah,
I definitely want to have more, like I said, over the moon. So I'll definitely want to get more cosplayers and definitely like artists too. Like, there's a lot of artists that I follow, like comic book artists,
yes. Do
painters,
you
and
follow Lee Howard on
yes,
TikTok? He does.
yep.
Well, he's one of my best friends.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, if you want him, I can definitely hook you both up because he's one of my best friends in the world. So lovely.
That'd
So
be
happy
awesome.
he's had so much success.
Yeah, I've had a couple. I've had a couple of artists. Well, one of the artists I had on, which is he's a part of our uh podcast platform. His name's Extra Cooler on Instagram, but his actual name is Nick. But he's called Extra Cooler because funny story, the Ecto Cooler high C drink,
Yes.
but that was back in the day. Obviously they do like remakes of it and stuff like that. So he his uncle worked for High C, I think like in the 80s, and
What?
his uncle was had the Ghostbusters account when the Ghostbuster movies was out, and he went to Nick when he was a kid and was like, "Hey, I have this account. They're looking. Here's a list of names that they want to name this high C drink. What do you want to call it? What would you pick?" And he's like, "Oh, I picked Extra Cooler. I thought that was pretty, or Ecto Cooler." And that's how you get the
He's the
Ecto Cooler.
reason for Ecto
Yeah,
Cooler
he's
being Ecto
yeah,
Cooler. That's
yeah.
dope.
I didn't even
What a
know
cool
that.
story.
Yeah, when I was interviewing him, I was like, because obviously I work with the Chick Foley show. We like he did literally did all of our designs. He does like a lot of design work for like a lot of like athletes and wrestlers and all that stuff. So like we're like kind of small time, but he's our friend, and we get a lot of like we bounce a lot of ideas off each other. So I had him on the show, and we're just talking and stuff like that. And I was like, Extra Cooler, where'd you get that name? And he's like, oh, I was a fan of Extra Cooler, and he's like, I'm not sure if I said this in public. He's like, but my uncle was he was like an advertiser, and he had the account for the Ghostbusters movie and blah blah blah. He's like, he gave me a list of names. I was like, they actually gave him like I think it was like a year supply of like Ecto Cooler juice and stuff like
They
that.
should
And I
give
think,
him a life supply. Oh my
yeah, you should.
god.
They should exactly. He's the one that brought the brought the name to life. But yeah, so if you go
Literally
to
his baby.
yeah, so you literally yeah, so if you go to his page, Extra Cooler, I think he has like a few animations where he has like the little like the actual drink with the little straw sticking out of it. That was like his original logo at the
I'm
time. But
so
yeah,
upset.
kind of funny thing, right? Yeah. So like these are all like I said, these are I'm lucky to actually know him, and actually he's actually working on my we're working
Oh my
together on my
god.
new show logo, and the logos that you see here in the corners. We're actually working on a redesign for both of those. So we're actually working now. But yeah, he was the
Macho Man. I'm sorry, I
yeah
went on his profile
yeah
too. Macho Man is my
he does a
favorite.
lot of caricatures. He does like he does like he displays like a lot of work. So like if he does like commissions for people, he'll like display the commissions and stuff like that for them too.
That
So
is so
he'd be another person to reach out to, is if you want like a logo or some type of like artist direction. Like I'm literally letting him have free reign because I have no idea what I want to do with these two logos, but he's helped me out. But anyway, I'm not sure how we got off on that tangent, but this is
No, that's
awesome.
so cool. I love
Um,
this. I love
yeah,
fandoms, man.
this is
People have such cool stories in this world.
it's it's like I said, it's I spend a lot of time on TikTok, and I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I follow not like my whole life is wasted on it, but like I like to try to find like different things and people that I'm interested in, stuff like that. And like I said, you were one of them that you
I'm
came
honored.
across. I think you're the probably like the last one I seen on TikTok that I like had interest in actually like seeing if this person would actually like sit down and actually talk. Because that's the other part of this show. I'm not sure if they're just going to be like, this dude's a creep, or this this guy's a weirdo. I'm definitely not doing a show.
You
So
shouldn't.
the fear is
Make
just
it
like reaching out
fun.
and saying, "Hey, are you willing to
Mm,
do this or not, or whatever?" But I always provide a link to the show so you can actually
mhm,
go and listen to it if you haven't heard and stuff like that. But most people haven't. But like just doing this type of things, and like you said, a fan of fandoms. That's what I think that's kind of like what I am. I like I see people like live out their dreams online, um, do what they love, and then I gain interest in it. And I go maybe, that person will sit down and talk to me, and, I can kind of like, pick their brains and see where they, see where they come from, and how this came about, like how this, obsession, if you want to call it, came about for them. This healthy obsession, as I call
Yeah.
it. So, like I said,
That's more of what I wanna do too.
yeah,
I wanna do a series on the YouTube called, well, the working title is School Me. It's just
yeah,
where I get somebody who's a really big fan of something, and they just tell
yes,
me, like, all the cool stuff that they know, and I'm
yeah,
like, "Dude," because of course I know stuff about Nightmare. Someone will be like so someone in my comments was like, "Watch." They were saying something when I was talking about Nancy, like, living on,
yeah.
they were like, "No, watch the movies." I was like, I could school you on every single one. But,
Exactly.
like, there's always something new to learn. I mean, there's things, of course, there's so much to learn out there, but, like, Jiggy Saw Girl, dude, I wouldn't just talk to her forever about everything she knows about Saw,
Mm,
or, the like, Ryan C. Showers, what he knows about Scream. I wanna
yeah,
watch like, what do you know about the movies that I don't? Like, tell me the
yeah,
most interesting facts in the world, or, like, you were mentioning the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles girl, like, that
yeah,
is the coolest thing in the world. Tell me about, like, I freaking love people
yeah.
being passionate. When I was in college, I was a part of an organization, an anime club was in the desk next to me, and when I'd have office hours, I'd be like, "What's your favorite anime? Tell me about your cons. Do you cosplay?" Like, and they invited me to their, end of the year anime party for anime club because I was just so interested in everything that they had to say, and, like, people make fun of people with fandoms, but you can
Yeah,
do if I was not a fan of Nightmare in the way that I am, I would not be living where I am. I would not be
yeah,
talking to you. I
yep,
wouldn't know so many friends all over the world. Like, being a fan of something has made me so globally aware of everything that's out there and whatever's possible. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you can't do something, or that what you're doing is small, because it's
yeah,
not. Like, this is incredible, you know?
yeah. No, no, definitely.
So,
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you like you said, you wanna kinda connect with the people that are, obviously, you might have a different fandom of something, but it all in all, you're kinda like the same, in the same realm. You're the same person.
yeah,
You're in this culture where it's either, you're obsessing over one thing or collecting another thing, but at the same time, we're, pretty much all, like a niche group of, people that can kinda connect on stuff. And like I said, this is one of the reasons why I love doing this, is just reaching out to, someone that I find interesting. Like I said, it's more of me, like, being more, personal in a sense, but, and hoping other people, like, what I'm putting out there and presenting. Um, and that's how I want to connect with people, is that's if if you gain a friend through it, that's even better. Like, I bet so many people from doing this show and the other shows that I do, like people across the world, England,
yeah,
Australia, like there's people that are, like, obviously they're not in the same time zone, but we can communicate somehow on Facebook or
yeah.
Instagram and stuff like that. But and obviously across the country, everyone is on different time zones. The
And
people I
then
do is
you
show work.
introduce me to, like, other people that I'm going
Yeah,
out there and I'm following. I mean,
yeah.
it's the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, so
I love it.
like I said, there's an interesting world of people out there that are, in the, like I said, kind of like nerd culture, if you want to call it that. Whether it be, like I said, with, if you're into professional wrestling, if you're into horror, if you're into anime, cosplay, all these people are interesting, and they all have these unique stories that I think need to be heard or should be heard. Um, that I think are interesting, because that's one of the main reasons why, like I said, I do the show, is to find out those stories, and, and learn more about people, and kind of take those experiences that they tell me, and kind of, either use them in my life, or kind of bring it to my next interview, and kind of use that as a reference point, that type of thing. So yeah, that's
So cool.
enough about me. But yeah, no, this is great. This is awesome. I don't want to hold you any longer. Or I would, but there's so
Mhm.
many other things I forgot to ask you about, that, like, and that's why I love doing the show, is because it's not like there's no, like, complete format to it. It's more or less just like,
Yeah.
wherever the conversation goes is gonna go. But yeah, definitely, I would definitely love to have you back on again to, ask you some more questions and deep dive a little bit more if you would be so kind to do so. But
I
yeah,
would love that. As the weird girl who's always felt like sometimes the odd one out, or
yeah,
other people, just to have people like the things that I put out into the world that are in my brain that I used to hide in the back of a closet because I was afraid of anybody finding out, or
yeah,
before the internet. Even now people are still discovering people who have fandoms or interests. Just
yeah,
like it's nice when you connect with people who connect with you, and who, new friends
yeah, yeah.
wherever we are. It's amazing.
Like I said, it's like I said, it's the culture of like obsession that brings us all together pretty much. It's like I said, it's like like I said, you could be following one thing on Instagram or TikTok, but it will bring you to another realm or
Yeah.
something similar to that, and that's how you find people. That's how like I said, that's how I found you. That's how I found my co-host Sheena. Just following on Instagram, and we linked up, and now we're doing a show. I mean, we've been doing a show. It's like our 5-year anniversary, which is pretty insane.
Oh,
But
congrats.
yeah, so but yeah, no, this is awesome. Definitely thank you for being on the show. Thank you for, taking the time to sit down and talk. And we'll end it here. I think actually, you know what? We don't end it here. I actually have a question.
Oh,
You know,
oh, oh,
so I
oh.
usually so if it's a person that's into wrestling, I usually ask them like a wrestling oriented question that kind of stumps them. So I'm going to ask you a question. Um, we'll keep it. We'll keep it Nightmare on Elm Street. What is? Can you rank? I'm not going to say 10. Can you rank 1 to 5? We'll start at 5. 5 to 1. The Nightmare on Elm Street movies in the franchise.
Ooh, rank my top 5.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Okay. Well, it might be easier actually for me to go the other way. Okay. Number 1 is Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Okay.
Hands down, my favorite. Then the first one, which
Okay.
started it all. I'm going to go number 3 because it really is a good story, even if I don't necessarily like how the ending panned out.
Okay.
I prefer the original ending. I'm going to go number 2 because number 2 is, in my opinion, such a great, scary movie. Jesse is a really good character. Mark Patton's a really good guy.
Yeah.
And I think it is the creepiest version of Freddy. And then number 5, I'm going to say, is my comfort movie out of all the horror movies in the world, is number 4, A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. I love Alice. I love Rick. I love the whole cast in that movie. It's just such a fun, I don't want to say feel good movie, but like,
Feel
yeah,
good.
I feel good. It's got a great soundtrack. I
That's
love
true.
Tuesday Night as Kristen Parker. I don't care what anybody says. I love her as Kristen. And so, yeah, I would say it would be that. It'd be the first, it'd be New Nightmare 1, 3, 2, 4. So
Yeah.
there's my top
I
5.
I love 3. I don't know if that's the one I've seen the most for some reason. I think that was I'm not sure if like it was on HBO at the time like a lot, and that's the one I've always seen. Um, and that one's my favorite one. Obviously, Lawrence Fishburne is in it as well, which is pretty cool.
Larry.
Um, and the other just random another movie that I love. That's a horror movie, or I probably should say slasher movie. Friday the 13th, Part 6. For some
Oh,
odd reason, don't know
yes.
why. I don't know
What do
why.
you
It's
think
probably
I
the
am, a
worst.
fart head? Such a
Yes,
good movie.
maybe that's why. Because I was like just a kid and hearing Farthead is hilarious. But like that movie, I don't know why. That's my favorite. And they have actually, actually want to pick up the figure. They actually have NECA makes
Oh, yeah.
the different series figures, but they actually have the Friday the 13th Part 6 Jason figure, and they
That's
actually have
cool.
Nightmare on Elm Street as well. That's another question I was gonna ask you, but that'll be another one about the action figure line. But anyway, we'll end it here, and we'll have you on again, and I'll ask you all the questions that I forgot, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining
Well,
me.
thanks, Marco. I appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.